So I would really like to spend, two things actually. I would welcome all the speakers of today into the panel discussion. So welcome Olga, welcome back. Xavier, welcome back. Roeland, welcome back. And Stuart, such a nice orange touch. Where are the orange shoes?
Under the table.
We leave them there. All right, great. So I want to take one moment to look at the last poll. And the last poll is, what are the biggest hurdles in connected mobility? Is it not enough supply? Is it not enough alternative mobility options? Is it the risk for cyber attacks? Is it about user privacy and GDPR compliance? So, and actually looking at the results, the biggest hurdle is that there is not enough supply in connected technology solutions. I'm going to look at, maybe Olga. What is your reaction on there is not enough supply? Do you agree?
I was also thinking what would be my response. It was also not enough supply and not enough products which are really connected, because it's easy to say we have car sharing, it's also connected, right? Or we have bike sharing, what also Xavier presented, we also have it. But we don't have intermodal mode connected, seamless. And I do believe we also have technology, but we don't have the products, seamless, connected, intermodal journey.
Mm-hmm. So you agree? Yeah. And looking at Xavier.
It should be.
Yeah, go ahead.
The last point, I think it make comfortable connectivity / comfortable to switch from ownership to usership, and this is what we're missing.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Xavier, do you also agree? What is your opinion?
Yeah, my opinion is also, and I see in the question that were raised during my presentation is that connected mobility is also to be able to get the data that we need, to regarding our sustainability program. So if we can calculate, through our platforms for car sharing, for the mobility allowance, for the bike sharing, maybe to have a way to calculate automatically the CO2 emissions that we were saving by implementing this or by using this. It's really that I would think that to get some data that really is useful for the companies to use it, because and as you said, there are maybe so many providers, and to have one integrated that can get the fully vision of all our mobility aspects or the mobility programs implemented by the company, and then with the results following what was implemented from the company.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Xavier. And looking at Stuart, I hear Xavier saying it would be great to have a kind of scenario analysis on the various mobility alternatives and the benefits, the savings they can bring in CO2 savings. Is that something you capture with your artificial intelligence?
There's aspects of what we capture naturally, but I think the issue, and it goes back to the various views today, is that the people are looking for a holistic solution that has everything included, and it's a little bit like the chicken and egg situation. One comes before the next. I think what we need to recognize is that, if we think about the travel industry, we're all employees of companies that, are used to traveling around, and 20, 30 years ago, there wasn't an holistic type of solution that exists today. What came up out of that environment was basically travel and expense systems, payment mechanisms, and booking tools. And it's pretty much the same situation that's happening now in this industry. We can't expect that day one there's going to be a holistic solution that integrates everything, even if we all dream of it. So I think what we need to recognize is, that different providers will be specialists at offering components. And there are many different companies out there that offer different solutions, whether it's a platform that you might aggregate some content, a payment solution, a data aggregator that consolidates CO2 information, for example, trip information. The key is, and the reason why I make that point is because in asking SIX for that information, yes, we can provide it, but it limits, we provide you the information for our services. Yeah. So, ultimately each provider out there of services is focused on optimizing their product, their solution. So if you're a public transport provider, it's about maximizing the number of people that use those systems. In the case of SIX, it's maximizing, the utilization of assets.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. And Roeland, if I look at you, I think you incorporate various means of transport in your platform. Do you capture the CO2 or the reduction in CO2, and how do you feed it back?
Short answer, we must actually. There is a new legislation coming up in the Netherlands where by every corporate needs to measure all the CO2 of all their professional trips and commute from this year, so from the mid of this year. So we need to measure all mobility, whether you come with the car, with the bike, with the train, etc. So you need all this data consolidated, and we have this data as I explained. And then the question is, how do you compare to other companies? Are you best practice or bad practice? And if you are bad practice, I think they're gonna start to force you to create a plan to become better practice or to reduce your CO2 level up to the level of at least the average compared to other companies. So that's really a very interesting direction where, of course, we're gonna evolve into. And secondly, I recognize also what Stuart is saying. So, like, okay, every vendor, they keep their data. So we sixth of all their services, but also our mother company is NS, Dutch Railways. They also have only their train data. And so I think the key or the ultimate difficulty is to connect all the different mobility providers, all the data, get all the data, consolidate, and put some CO2 metrics or calculations on all these kind of trips and consolidate that together. That's a real difficulty, and I think the industry will start to solve that this year and next year.
Yeah, thank you, Roeland.
Can I say something on it? Because I think we have to split it. So everything which is under car policy eligible, it's actually no-brainer because either it's own fleet or not. There are payment bills, so we can calculate it. So we have pretty clear picture on it. And travel management, either it's leasing or it's own. So we have pretty clear picture on travel, fleet, service fleet, car policy, if it's railway. So this part, I think for most of the companies is clear. So the question is commuting part. This one is tricky, and you're right, the big companies are eligible. So we have some assumption metrics because we have questionnaire to employees. So how many, we actually have this data, but we are not allowed to look at, right? So how many kilometers you live in from the building, from the office. We have questionnaire and we make some assumption on it. This part is tricky, but I think everything what is service, everything what is under mobility policy or car policy, whatever you name it, it's actually pretty clear how to get CO2.
Yeah. And is it also because in the Netherlands, scope 3, so also the CO2 emissions in commuting needs to be captured, and it needs to be machine readable. Indeed, I think as of October. How is that then in Germany, Olga? Do you have the same
We're
rules?
also facing, it's European rules. As I know, we're also going to report it in our CO2 report, and we are also looking for the right weight. So now at assumption, I would believe we even stay with this. So it's more or less assumption on commuting, because in Germany there are some strict rules regarding legislation, what we can estimate, what we can look at the system at or not. So I would believe we still stick with estimation on commuting.
Yeah.
Full
All right. Yeah, and then and my experience in the past, when we started CO2 reporting, it was year on year you try to improve it, and you try to capture more data, integrate that, and discuss actually with your authorization officer, how you call it, with the large. The big four,
Data
who is
security?
checking, the data, who's need to check your data, whether it's great that you really agree on certain rules, how you capture it, and how you improve that year after year. Yeah.
What we put in place in the TCO2 app for all employees, so plenty money what we invest in, and it's for free. You can use it, but you don't have to. We started in this year. Corona, it's not the best period of time to launch something like this, and we will see how many people going to use it, and they can just shift and say, okay, I'm commuting now with the bicycle, and send us CO2 amount. But it's like, you can use it, you don't have to, and we will see how many people going to use it.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. We're looking at the questions in the chat box. If you have any questions, please raise them. Paul Wessels is asking, do you think there is a role for national and local authorities to set rules and regulations more or less forcing mobility providers to cooperate towards an open and integrated ecosystem? Roeland, is it a question for you?
Well, yes, in the early days, let's say. So what we've seen in the let's say a couple of years ago, when these mobility providers, they didn't actually want to open up towards the mass mobility as a service application. So there was a little bit of a fight. So do we want our own app? Do we want a tier user or a shared car user? Do we want them in our own app, or do we want to give it to the mass app? And we've seen that, for instance, in Antwerp, they really forced. So they say, okay, you're not going to get a license to operate in Antwerp if you're not going to open up to at least one or two mobility as a service apps. And so from this obligation, they say, okay, we are now obliged to do it. Let's now open up and let's now open up to all mass apps in the world or in Europe. So I think that was a major drive to open up. I think now mobility providers have opened up, and I think they are really in the mindset of, okay, let's work together with these mass apps or these integrators.
Yeah, so push and pressure helps, regulation helps.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's also what we in Plan Mobilité Obligatoire in France, and also in vehicle safety and all these things. I actually had a question when I was networking in a networking break. And there was really a question on integrated mobility and connected mobility. How is that actually for the individual employee? And there's still much resistance in the individual to change, to leave the car behind, take that bicycle, take public transport to commute. And how do you help your employees overcoming that anxiety to switch to alternative mobility? Olga, do you want to reply to that?
Oh God, yes, of course. But it's a hard one, right? So what we're doing now, we providing bigger offering. So we don't put until now any limitation. So we have car sharing, we have bike sharing, we have joined with 6 project for the car company, in the flex business. So depending which car do you need, you can switch. We put in mass in place, and with this offering, we hope very much that our employees will switch. Do we get success? I don't know. So we see, and like French example, for example, in car, for people who are under car policy, we also have something like benefit budget. We're giving subscription for public transport, we're having subscription for railways, and from 2,000 people, 500 decided to take something else. So we see this movement, but it's not the easy one. So different offering, awareness, and depending on the country, we see also different rules coming. Like in some cities in Germany, there are also limitations on the speed. For example, in Paris, something different going on. So I think there are not only corporates who can win. So it's like ecosystems need to play jointly. So we provide offering, we invest money. By the way, it's money from the corporate side point of view, especially if it's about commuting. And we hope that with this offering and awareness, we will push employees, but there are also some obstacles. It's not that easy.
Yeah. And the last question, thank you so much, Olga. Last question to you, Stuart, and in line with the question, you talked before, like switching to alternative and connected mobility should go easy. And also convincing employees and changing behavior of employees. If it's fun and if it's easy, then it flows. To your perception, what are the 3 things that makes connected mobility easy?
The 3 things. I mean, I think the connected mobility is for me on a user level is making it accessible. Yeah. In terms of, making options, so providing options, making it accessible, and I guess making it affordable. You heard that earlier from Conrad. I mean, you can take a share car in various cities from as little as 19 euro cents a minute. You can drive for 30 minutes for less than 6 euros, which is in many cases, less expensive than public transport. So it's making it affordable for sure, accessible so that you can see what you need when you want it. And I think from our perspective, the connectivity piece, going back to what I mentioned earlier, the reason why I ummed and ahed when I heard that question from Paul earlier is because it's not about forcing people. Obviously, it's the carrot and stick, in terms of stimulus. But what we do in Sixt is make our content available to different providers to make it, accessible. So whether you use a payment provider, a platform like Roeland's, it's making our content accessible so people can use it, and then they can decide, how they consume it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And for you, Xavier, how is that making it easier, connected mobility easier to your employees?
Yes, and also it's really it's to listen to them, and to be flexible, and to and to follow also, because as you say, there are also national rules. There is there are regulations, regarding now driving restriction, for example, in the cities. They are enhancing all the bike roads to access in the cities. So this is this kind of actions, and and to communicate it to our employees that with this mobility programs, they can of course be in line with all these new regulations. And and also it's very important, it's to have solutions that also are attractive for them, and also financially attractive. I had the example of some employees that they live in Paris, and the parking are very expensive in Paris. So for them, they see it as an opportunity to have another mobility, solutions to avoid them to have a car to be parked in the city. It's really something that we have to be very pragmatic, and to know what is exactly the situation in the local regulations in the cities, and to have solutions that meet to their needs, and that also very attractive for them, because at the end, if they don't see any financial benefit, they will not use it.
Yeah, I think that's a great one. Great to finish with. Be pragmatic. So, Olga, thank you so much for being here. Great to have you on board, and I love the pink color that you have, and the representation of Deutsche Telekom. Xavier, also to you, thank you so much for being here and all the insights that you provided us with. And as well as for Roeland, great example, best practice that you could bring to the table. Thank you for that. And Stuart and Konrad behind the scenes, thank you so much for being here. Impressive to see all that available e-scooters, vehicles on the roads. I really going, and if I walk in Amsterdam, then I think, is this a sixth car or not? That make me realize that. So really, and thank you also very much for organizing this session with us. So with that, I would like to go to formally close the session. I have a couple of takeaways for all of us that I would like to go through. So also thank you very much to all the participants for all your questions. Great questions there. If there's anything left, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm happy to share that with you. So what's next? Now, we will capture all the key takeaways that we learned today and capture them in an article which will be published next week. You will see it at, I think it's the 24th of February. Also next is, please take a moment to reply to the feedback survey. If you have any suggestions for improvement, any other questions, any themes you would like to discuss, then please also feed that back to us. And I think one of our next initiatives is that behind the scenes we are going to work on we call it mobility maturity map. And we are going with the Smart Mobility Institute. We are researching the maturity of alternative mobility across Europe. And what are the parameters for that? How mature is it? How available is it? What are the players available? What are the different mobility forms available? And we're going to capture that in a research paper and have that ready in May. Also, we have a next Smart Mobility session, which is on, and I'm looking at, yeah, there it is, which is on June 8th, prior to the Smart Mobility Conference. This year, the Smart Mobility Conference will happen live, so you can register for that. It will be held close to Brussels Airport, Zaventem, where it's being held. And on June 8th, the day prior to the big event, is this next Smart Mobility Institute. So you're also very welcome to join us for that next session. And I'm checking if there's anything left. There is nothing left for me to say. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sixt, again, Stuart and Conrad. Lovely to working with you again. And then I would say see you in Brussels, in Zaventem in June. Thank you.